Hello friends, family, and internet strangers. Stephanie here. Happy Easter. Today we are doing a battle of the baked beans. I mentioned a few videos ago an epic fail that my mother had one time making beans, and I said that for Easter we would try again in the Instant Pot, but my mother is a skeptic. So we're doing this half and half. I am doing half of the beans in the Instant Pot. She is doing half of the beans the old-fashioned way.
Hello.
So Mom is gonna head over to the stove. I'm gonna head to the Instant Pot. We are starting with the exact same ingredients, making the exact same dish. 2 ways. Let's see whose is better. This recipe started out on my father's side of the family, and he used to make it for years. It was his mother's recipe. My mom started doing the cooking a few years ago, and now she's altered the recipe a little bit. And even though we're only having 5 people, including us, eating Easter dinner, we're making enough for an entire party. We use Great Northern beans, and while it's not necessary to soak them if you're doing this in the Instant Pot, it is still recommended. So we soaked these overnight and then drained and rinsed them in the morning. The original recipe calls for a full cup of white sugar, but we have switched that to half white, half brown. So for each pound of beans, we are going to use a package of salt pork, this is the kind that we use, and then half a cup of white sugar, half a cup of brown sugar, and half an onion. The original recipe calls for an entire onion. My mom has also changed that to half. For each one, we're going to chop them up and pulverize them in a food processor till they're blended. The only additional ingredient I'll be using is 1 tablespoon of olive oil because I'm going to start out by sauteing my salt pork and onions before I start cooking this.
So I'm going to bring my beans to a boil with the salt pork in them. And as they cook, there'll be a bunch of foam from the meat coming up to the top. I'll skim that off and then we'll move on and add our other ingredients. But for now, we're going to get this coming to a boil. So now we've come to a boil and you can see all the foam. We're just going to take this off. So now we're going to add our brown sugar.
Excuse you, Annie.
And our white sugar. And our onions. Now we're going to stir it. And this is where it went terribly awry in the past. At this point, we need to turn it down so it simmers for an hour or so, not boils for an hour or so.
Because what happens when it boils for an hour or so?
It catches on fire.
Yeah.
And then it's a problem. All right, now we wait.
At this point, Mom couldn't remember if she was supposed to cover it or not, so she consulted with Dad. Yes, you cover while you simmer. Meanwhile, I turn my Instant Pot onto the saute function and add in those onions and a little bit of olive oil to start cooking those. I wanted to use a little bit of oil because I did read that it helps with the foam when you are cooking beans in the Instant Pot. And then I also wanted to add a little bit of flavor, so I wanted to start this by sauteing my salt pork and onions together. I only did that though for about 3 minutes to get a little bit of that fat going in the pan. I add my beans in and then I'm going to add those sugars. If you do not have brown sugar on hand, you can do a full cup of white sugar or vice versa. You could do a full cup of brown sugar, but about a cup of sugar. These are not the healthiest beans for you. I add about 6 cups of water. Make sure in the Instant Pot you don't overfill it. When you're doing beans, it should only be filled halfway to that halfway marker. I'm going to close and seal this and then do 20 minutes. If you don't soak these, you want to do at least 30 minutes, but 20 is fine for this. This leaves us plenty of time for our daily game of Phase 10. The difference here, though, I never had to get up during the entire 10 phases. My mom had to get up multiple times to check on hers. By the time our game is done, my beans are ready. I have done a 20-minute natural release after the 20 minutes of cooking and about 20 minutes it took to get up to pressure. These look good. If they are not done to your liking, you can put the lid back on and put it on for a little bit longer, but I tasted mine and they tasted pretty good, pretty done. So I set this aside and started ladling out my beans. I put all of these into a serving dish that will then go into the oven. We always do this the day before. And then I add some liquid back into my serving dish.
So now that we've boiled for an hour and we've trimmed up all of our salt pork, now we've got it in our pan and we're just going to put some juice just to come up even above it. We don't want it to be too juicy, but we don't want it to get dried out when we put it in the oven.
Each of us reserved a little bit of our cooking liquid just in case it dries out. We do always prepare this the day before and then bake it the following day, but that's not necessary. Here's a look at mine. Here's a look at Mom's. They look pretty much the same, and to be honest, I tasted them already, and they pretty much taste the same, but we're going to cover them up, put them in the fridge, and bake them tomorrow. We put these covered up in the oven at 350 for 1 hour. The beans are out of the oven. We are going to do a blind taste test. Mom and I are the only ones who know which pan of beans is which. We're going to make everyone try both. For the blind taste test, we made each person take beans from each pan and put them on different parts of their plate. I was able to tell a little bit of a difference. Mine were just slightly darker, so I could tell which one people were pointing at on their plate.
You can taste a little bit more flavor
In those ones?
in these with the salt pork.
Okay.
These are like regular beans.
Okay. These are the softer ones, you said?
Yeah.
And these ones, not as much. But other than that, they taste pretty much the same, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good to know.
Beans. This one.
You like that one better?
Yeah.
That one's mine.
These ones are good.
So that
hands
seems to
down.
be the consensus.
You're the
they're
one.
softer.
Yeah.
Yep.
The consensus is in, and my beans have won, as have they splattered all over the table. But try them in the Instant Pot. I'll link the recipes to both below. And don't forget to like if you liked this video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching. Happy Easter.
You gotta cut the hair off first.
And now, no more fighting. They join as one.